All of us reach a point in time where we are depleted and need to somehow find a way to reignite the fire within. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience, where we will venture into the heart of the human spirit. We'll discuss the art of reigniting our passion and strategies to stoke our enthusiasm. And now, here are your hosts, Natalie Davis and Pamela Cass.
So he stayed at the hospital the next night, and I got to go up and see him the next day. And I'll have to share some pictures with you. He had a little vest on from doing the surgery to keep his incision intact. And he came in and he just looked so disheveled. But when he saw me, I saw the life come back into him again. And I could tell he felt safe again with me, and he felt comforted. And so I just sat there. We sat there in silence for, a few hours, and I comforted him, and they had to take him back. And they said, look, if he if he eats breakfast tomorrow and does good, you'll be able to bring him home. So I went home that night, and you know had a hard time sleeping because it's like, wondering if I'm ever gonna hear his footsteps in the house again. My son's gonna be able to, call his name. And I remember them calling me in the morning. They're like, it's great news. He's up, he's vibrant, he's eating breakfast, and he can come home today. And they're like, I can't believe how well he's moving. And I was just like, wow. And I remember going to get him and bringing him home, and just being able to see him, walk back in the house, and to hear my son's voice again yell, the little footsteps. My son is 2.5, and to hear him yell Tambo's name, and to see his hero again. And Tambo wagged his tail, gave him a little nudge, and Mackie was hugging him, and all was right in the world again for that period of time. And the next step from there was then, waiting for the official biopsy results to let me know if it was cancer or not.
Mm. Oh my gosh. That's I mean, it's like you talk about the emotional roller coaster for both of you that you were going through in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was like it was a wave of emotions. Like, I went to work that day, and now I'm at the pet ER wondering if I'm saying goodbye to my partner. And I remember saying to myself, is I'm not ready for this again. I'm not prepared. We were thriving. We were thriving, and but that's life, right? That's what happens in life, is we're doing well, and then life hits us, and in 1 second your world changes again. And I wanted to really, when I was walking back to him, I really wanted to break down. But that was a defining moment where I knew that it was my time, and it's still my time to be there for him. And I feel in that moment that I breathed life back into him. And I feel like I've been continuing to do that, and that's what's been, keeping him going, as part of the reason why he's been so resilient. So they called within a couple days, about 4 or 5 days after that, and it was what I suspected. It's a cancer called hemangiosarcoma, and it's called the silent killer in dogs, because these blood masses, they form on the spleen and the liver. And then what happens is they could be acting fine, and then these masses burst, and then they can bleed out. And as I started doing research on it, I started talking to other people, and they said, my gosh, my dog had the same thing, but I didn't get home in time. He bled out, this mass ruptured, and so many people had gone through that, or they got him to the pet ER too late. And again, going back to that moment of something, I never leave work early, and something drove me to leave work early that day. And again, I think it was something much bigger than all of us, telling me to leave. So right then and there, that was a miracle in itself. But as I started reading the diagnosis, um, even after, I took him home, they gave him, they said, with if this is hemangiosarcoma, he's probably got 14 to 21 days to live, because if the cancer is spread to the liver, which we suspected, these blood masses are on there and these masses can burst again, and now you're back to an emergency situation, and it's a very aggressive cancer. So I was already thinking, okay, I've gotten through all this, and now am I looking at a 2-week to 21-day window for him to live? And so then I had to get an oncology appointment, and I kind of did my research, and I'm in the Baltimore area, and I found one about an hour and a half from the house in Malvern, PA, that had a good oncology department. So, we got our appointment set up, and I remember driving him there that day. I was very anxious, but part of it was also therapeutic, because it was one of those, we were in a long car ride again together, and it was kind of like we were back in it together. And I remember, and I still tell Tambo this to this day, is I said, this is our final mission. This is our final call. This is our biggest one out of them all. And I said, we're in this together. Whatever happens, we're riding this together. And so I felt like, we were going into a war and a fight, driving there. And I get him in there, and they took him back, and I had the consult with the oncologist, and she said, look, Chris, I'm going to shoot you straight. If the cancer, we're going to do an ultrasound, but if the cancer is on the liver, chemotherapy isn't going to do much. It's too far gone, and you're going to have to make some decisions. And I didn't know right then and there, because then I risked, going to work again and one of these mass rupturing again, and then me not being there. There was no way for me to be with them 24/7. So I didn't know if I was going to have to make a decision right then and there. And then, again, I had these wave of emotions going through me. And I remember them taking him back for the ultrasound, and Tambo's looking back at me, like looking for reassurance to say, "Dad, is it okay?" And I said, "You're good, buddy. You're gonna be fine." And it was about 40 minutes, but it felt like, my gosh, it felt like 2 hours, that time sitting in there. And she came back in, and just from me being a cop, I can read energy, and it was a different energy. I was expecting more of a somber energy, but this felt good. And she said, I can't believe it. We did the ultrasound, and what they thought were masses on the liver wasn't. And as of right now, he doesn't have any cancer on the liver. So we can start chemotherapy today. And huge relief. I broke down crying a little bit, and I remember again calling Jason from Project Canine here. Again, a short conversation. I said, "Hey Jay," I said, "this is the deal. They can start chemo today." He's like, "How much is it?" I said, "It's going to be about $700 a session." He said, "We got it. Whatever you need." And again, I told the oncologist that, and she was kind of taken aback, and she's like, "All right, let's get it started." So we started chemotherapy that day, and the plan was to do 5 sessions, do one every 2 weeks, and then we would assess and go from there. So first chemo sessions were a little rough. Day 3 or 4, he had a lot of nausea and some vomiting, and he didn't want to eat. And once I got the medications in him, he was able to eat a little bit. But I tell you what, he responded after 2 or 3 days of nausea. He responded back really well, and that kind of became the routine. He had those days of nausea, but then he bounced back pretty quickly. But what I started to do during the chemo sessions is I was like, this, nobody wants to take their canine partner for chemotherapy, but I tried to find some happiness in it, right? And one of the things I started doing is I started just kind of documenting his journey on Instagram. And every time we went for a session, I took off work, and that was our day together. It was that hour and 40-minute, 2-hour drive to PA. We were in it together. But then I started doing some fun things. I did like a fight theme for every chemo session. The first one I did was a John Cena, the WWE John Cena, where I put him in a John Cena t-shirt, and I had one on, and I had the Never Give Up towel. And it's on my Instagram, and I had him come out to the theme music, and I filmed it, and people loved it.
Yeah.
And then I did a Rocky one. So and I put a robe and little boxing gloves on him, and he came out to There's No Easy Way Out, and we did our themes every week, and the responses I got were unbelievable. And that's when something bigger happened. People started reaching out to me, and I didn't expect it, but people started reaching out to me that were following him, saying, "Hey, I'm going through chemotherapy right now, and I wanted to quit." And I see Tambo, and I see his story, and I see his resilience, and I see his willingness to find happiness in the darkest of times, and how a dog lives his life, and it's inspired me to keep going. I had mothers that had children going through cancer, and as a newer father, that's that hits me hard. That's saying that their highlight of the week is seeing posts about Tambo, or seeing him come out in his costume, and giving them hope. And I really started to look at it like how dogs and animals tend to live their life, and the simplicity of living in the moment, and looking at what's important, and what's in front of us. And I think as humans sometimes we've complicated that, right? And I think they've had it figured out for a long time. And to see a dog that, because Tambo didn't know he had cancer, but his body hurt, but he chose happiness every day. He chose to be vibrant. But also a big part of that, what I realized was me, was I was I was breathing life into him. My positivity toward him gave him the motivation to go forward. And I really started thinking about that with humans that are going through cancer, is that you can give expiration dates to anybody, or timelines and stuff like that, but it's the mind, body, and spirit is what keeps us going. And people need to have hope. Hope, they can say, is a mythical thing, or it's not real, but it is, because when you have hope, it changes your whole mindset. It changes how your body reacts. It changes how you view the world. And when you have a positive attitude, that changes everything. And Tambo needed that from me. So he became the fighter, and I became the voice for him, right? And I talk about being the voice of the voiceless. And I started telling his story, and from the resilience, and building it even bigger, of where he came from, of the dog that nobody wanted, that the dog that went unnoticed, the dog that connected with somebody who was similar to him, that the two people that kind of found each other, and to go through his career and to thrive, and then to go through two traumatic injuries, and now the battle of his life with cancer, and continue to choose life and continue to fight. And I started, doing the podcast. I had the WBAL from Baltimore. They came and they filmed a news interview at the house. So his story just started gaining, a lot of national attention. His social media following, grew by the thousands. And before I know it, he people were reaching out to me every day with stories and of hope. And that was real, and that was deep for me, to see the impact that this had on other people.
Wow. There's so much there. And I think anybody that is listening to this podcast that has ever had an animal, lost an animal, they absolutely understand this. But there's something so much deeper with this relationship for you and for Tambo, because like you said, you called him your partner. You guys were together all day, every day,
Yeah.
trusting each other. And he took care of you, you took care of him. And now you're on the probably most important assignment of your life, because look at how many people you're touching.
Yeah, and that's what I said, is every time we would go for an oncology appointment, they would try to give me timelines, and I said, no disrespect, is I don't want to hear them, because I don't believe in them.
Yeah.
But each time they do his blood work, and they said his blood work's perfect. He's doing great. And then he graduated from his 5 sessions of from chemotherapy, and then the next step is he's since been on an oral chemo pill. So he's been on that for about 6 weeks now. And I remember going back for his his 5-week checkup, and I was really nervous about that because they were doing another ultrasound, and I know the oncologist was really worried about it. And right before that, our theme for that day, as I said, he doesn't need a John Cena or a Rocky theme. He's earned his own theme at this point. He's his own fighter. So right before that, a company in Houston had reached out to me called Houndbound Brewing that does T-shirts, and they wanted to do Tambo's own T-shirt, and with a lot of the proceeds going back to Project Canine Hero to help fund Tambo's care, which was amazing. So the T-shirts and hoodies sold out, and they were Tambo Strong shirts. Um, and it said, loyalty, resilience. So I put him in his own T-shirt that day, and he proudly wore it there for his checkup. And I remember that they took him back, and she said, we just did an ultrasound. There's no they call them Mets. There's no Mets anywhere. His liver's clear, his lungs are clear. He's truly defying the odds. And I think they were shocked just as much. Again, this is a dog that was given, 2 weeks to live. So we've been continuing on that oral chemo pill. And ironically, right before this interview, this Monday, I have our next 5-week follow-up, which makes me a little nervous because they are going to do an ultrasound. But I got to tell you, he's been doing amazing. And we haven't stopped. We just got on November 16th, right before that, the Philadelphia Eagles had reached out, and they had their salute to service game, and they had heard about Tambo's story, and they said we would love to honor Tambo for his not only his service to the country, but for his cancer battle. So I gotta tell you, what an amazing weekend. So I drove out Saturday out to Philly, and I was out there with the Project Canine Hero team, and we stayed in an Airbnb. And then that Saturday we went to the Rocky Stairs, if you remember from the movie where Rocky ascends the stairs. So I got to ascend the stairs with Tambo, and what an amazing moment! The underdog, the being in Philadelphia, the Rocky Balboa story, the underdog that nobody gave a chance to, and here I am with him. We got some amazing pictures at the Rocky statue. I got filmed running up the stairs with Tambo, and it's kind of a full circle moment. So I didn't think anything could top that, and then came the game. They brought us out in the second time out in the first quarter, so the stadium was packed with 70,000 people, and they read his working bio and everything he did, all the the 10,000 searches that he did, and then talked about his double CCL tears and his ligament tears. And then they said now he's in the fight of his life with a battle with an aggressive cancer. And as they said that, it's like Tambo came to life. He started, and his face was right on the big screen of Philly with 70,000 people. He just started barking, saying, "I'm here. I'm alive. I'm still going." And at that moment, I get goosebumps talking about this. 70,000 people stood on their feet and gave us a standing ovation. And I was like, this is defying the odds. This is coming full circle. This is about never giving up, not listening to what other people say, and continuing to have a positive attitude. Like it was surreal, and to be in that moment, I'm still like taking it all in of the moment, and being on the Rocky Stairs, and having that moment with him. So it's been incredible. It was just incredible. It's the best way I can say it.
I love it. He had his own Rocky Balboa moment. It just made
Yes.
its way all the way out to the field, which is huge.
Yeah, and the announcer said, a true Philadelphia fighter through and through.
Yeah.
And what a moment. And to be in Philly, in the state that he got his chemotherapy, and the story of Rocky. I mean, you can't script anything better than that. You just can't. And then I recently just did if you all aren't familiar with the Doggist, he's got about 11 million followers on social media, and he's known for taking pictures of people's dogs and celebrities. And he had just interviewed Jane Goodall before she passed. Well, they had reached out to me, and I just did an interview for his new YouTube series about, Tambo's story. So that's on his new Substack series on YouTube that you can find it on there. And then we just launched Tambo's second shirt line, which is the Defy the Odds shirt, and they turned out great. It says Defy the Odds at the top. It has Tambo with the Capitol building behind him, his hand on an explosive device, and then at the bottom it says Cancer Warrior. And I can't tell you how many people reached out and said, my my dad has stage 4 pancreatic cancer and he wanted to quit, but he wants one of Tambo's shirts.
Hmm.
He wants to fight. He wants to defy the odds.
Yeah.
And now the real full circle moment, which it doesn't get any more real than this. My dad lives in Florida. I get a call from him. He was having some issues and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. Called me up and says he has just got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma out of the blue. And my dad is a very stoic person, doesn't show a lot of emotion, and I'm trying to talk to him, about the Tambo's diagnosis, and all he wanted to talk about was Tambo. How's Tambo? When can I get a shirt? And I said, Dad, I'm gonna send you a shirt, but it's like instantly he's like, I'm like him. I'm fighting something as well. We're in this together, and I think that's what people need. And in a world we live in right now with so much, negativity and hate and different sides and stuff, I think the world needs more good stories and needs to hear stories like this about resilience and overcoming adversity and having hope. And that's why, I'm normally a very, private person, but I feel like I have an obligation to share Tambo's story and hopefully help and inspire other people. And one of the things I never thought it would do is I just finished his children's book. I'm working on the illustration. If you'd have asked me a year ago that write a children's book, I'd tell you were crazy. So, but it's
I think if we had asked you about any of this 7 years ago, we would have thought you would have thought we were crazy.
right. And I'm about 15 chapters into his adult book, and I decided to do that in a two-part series where I'm going to end it as our defining moment in Philadelphia at the Eagles game with 70,000 people coming full circle. And then the next one will pick up from there, and that will follow him through the rest of his journey, which will hopefully be, a long time from now. Yeah.
Yeah, many, many years. And
Yeah.
I see this becoming a movie, an Oscar-winning movie. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
you would go see it.
And just thinking about like that moment, I go back to that moment of looking at him when we first came together, and people have said to me, Chris, sometimes you're too guarded. You don't let your guard down, and looking at this dog and seeing the dog version of myself, and I'm like, this is meant to be. And then leaving work early that day, and then overcoming those injuries, and then every surgery where, hey, he may not make it through this, or he may not make it through the recovery, and then continue to fight the dog that initially that everybody just kind of passed by. But that's kind of been the story of my life, right? Like I've rose up through the ranks, but I've had to work hard for it, and I've never been, the first choice for anything, but I know once I get there, I'm going to be successful. And it's about resiliency. It's about never giving up and continuing to push forward, even though sometimes the odds are stacked against you. And I tell people all the time, I lead a large group of officers now, is to don't let anybody define who you are. Is the minute you stop caring about what anybody else thinks about yourself, it's such a freeing moment, and you really start to come into your own of who you are. But so often we let other people define us or keep us, categorized in one area, and we all have so much potential, so I think that's an important thing to highlight.
Yeah.
I love that. So Chris, for me, of course, my brain and in its weird sense of humor, I think of, if someone starts to define who you are in Tambo fashion, maybe you just pee on their wall and walk away, and that's it.
I think we've all wanted to do that at some
There we
point.
go. And there's that. Just pee on their wall.
I think about that story, and they said he just looked me right in the eyes and just lifted his leg and peed right on the wall and walked away. And
Said, "You're not my person. You're not my person.
You're not my people. I'm moving on. Thank you."
I'm waiting for my person."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Chris, thank you for sharing your story and Tambo's story. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I too hope that, part 2 of this book series that you're doing, we get to continue to
It's
see
a
the work that Tambo's doing. Yes.
long book.
Yes.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, after Philly, I said, we're just getting started. That was just the warning shot. We're coming. So
you have a lot of hope to spread.
Yeah,
around
that's right.
country.
And one of the things I wanted to do when his children's book is done is I wanted to get, because at the end, the synopsis of the book is it's about any child that's ever felt small, and it's about Tambo being the dog that served the country. And then it talks about him getting sick. It doesn't go into cancer, but I think with a lot of children is that sometimes they don't understand what happens to animals. And it just talks about him getting sick, but continuing to give people hope and then inspiring children. And at the end, he doesn't leave. He becomes a star in the shape of a German Shepherd. And it's a picture at the end. It'll be a picture of my son with a stuffed German Shepherd looking up at Tambo, who's always watching over him and inspiring not only him but other children to never give up hope, regardless of how scary things may be. So I thought that was fitting.
Beautiful.
I agree. I love that. Well, once you are, all of the books are published and you're ready to talk about those, we'd love to have you back to discuss it and share it with our listeners.
Absolutely. You guys have been an absolute pleasure to talk to. You have great energy. Like I said, I'm very big on energy, and you all have amazing energy. So it's just a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolutely.
It was an honor.
Chris, before we hop off, I do want to give you an opportunity, your social media handles, how can people find you? And Tambo? Yes.
So on primarily on Instagram, and that's lowercase k, the number 9, and then underscore Tambo, TAMBO, and it's a public profile, so anybody can follow it. I post updates on Tambo, all the time, and then our journeys, and one of the things that I've tried to do too to attack this cancer is I didn't touch on that, is I'm not just saying, hey, he's taking chemotherapy. We've attacked this from the mind, body, and the spirit. So not only is he, my positive attitude and keeping him active and doing things, I've got a whole holistic approach to medication. I take him for rehab sessions where he does hydrotherapy, underwater treadmill. He gets therapeutic massages, and then we've got him on a whole. I've had companies reach out to me that have put a whole diet plan together for him. So we're attacking this from every angle, and so many people have been helpful, and I think that's really kept him in the fight, is just hitting this from every angle. And I think that's the same for us going through anything, is not just saying, hey, I'm dealing with this, I'm going to take this medication, but you really have to look at it from all angles and how to attack that.
Yeah.
And but yeah,
I love that. The mind, body, spirit approach, the environment, what you're taking in from every aspect,
Everything.
what you're taking in.
Yeah.
It applies
I did create a TikTok, but I haven't quite. I would have swore I never got on TikTok either, but I'm just launching that, so that's a whole nother beast for me to understand.
You took the words right out of my mouth. It's a beast.
We will watch for it.
I'm still learning that one. So.
Well, we will make sure that we tag your socials in the show notes as well. Chris, any final words that you have for our listeners that we haven't touched on today?
Just that in the darkest of times, you can always find hope, and you can always find light. You just have to know where to find it, and you have to be patient, because it's there, and that life is going to hit us hard, and we got to be prepared for it. And, you got to surround yourself with good people and have the right mindset to do it. And when you do that, anything's possible. And, resilience is a part of life. And that's one of the biggest parts of life. It's like what Rocky said in the movie, it's not how hard you get, it's how hard you get, and you can keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. So, and that's the key.
Beautiful.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you to Tambo. This has been an absolute pleasure. And I think that's a perfect and most beautiful way for us to end. We will put all of Chris's contact information in the show notes, and you all know the deal. If you want to know what's happening in the world of Reignite Resilience, head on over to reigniteresilience.com. Until next time, we will see y'all soon. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today on the Reignite Resilience podcast. We hope you had some aha moments and learned a few new real-life ideas to fuel the flames of passion. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like or download your favorite episodes, and of course, share with your friends and family. We look forward to seeing you again next time on Reignite Resilience.